You may remember the comic science fiction work by Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In his second book, Restaurant at the End of the Universe, he introduces another crazy notion. His heroes travel to the very end of the space-time continuum. There they encounter a posh restaurant. The universe ceased with a feast. It concludes with food. Where on earth did Adams get this zany idea?
The Lord of Hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-matured wines. He will swallow up death forever.
Oh yes. It's the same idea as we heard in our first reading. The words come from a passage written by a later disciple of the prophet and often called the Apocalypse of Isaiah. An apocalypse is a writing that claims to reveal the cosmic secrets of the end times. We tend to think of the end in terms of destruction. But for the Bible, it usually means fulfillment. The end of a chef's labours is when all the ingredients come together to produce a wonderful meal. The end also points to the purpose. The prophet is not just talking about God's purpose for Israel, but of the destiny for all peoples. He boldly proclaims that the Lord's design for all humanity is not destruction. No, death has already been swallowed up as an aperitif. God's ultimate goal is for us all to delight in him with feasting. In a hungry world, it's not surprised that this became a popular image. The New Testament is full of the promise to share in the banquet of the Messiah. It underlies the passage we heard today in Matthew's Gospel. In 70 AD, the Roman army destroyed the holy city of Jerusalem and burned its temple to the ground. This traumatic action affects the way that Matthew tells this parable of the great feast. In Luke's story, the host is a man organising a dinner party. In Matthew, the host becomes a king, preparing a sumptuous feast for a royal wedding. In Luke, the reluctant guests refuse with feeble excuses. In Matthew, they are rebels who rise up, attack and kill the king's messenger. In response to this uprising, the king sends in his army. Matthew's description echoes of what then actually happened to Jerusalem. The king sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burnt their city. Incidentally, I love the fact that despite this military campaign lasting weeks or months, the food is still hot on the table and ready for the new set of guests. Matthew blames Jerusalem's destruction on its rejection of Jesus. He makes this even more explicit in the next chapter when Jesus grieves over the city. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. It's also Jesus' message of God's universal love that is rejected. So if the original guests don't want to come, then the party is open to to prostitutes, tax collectors and outlaws. Even foreigners, immigrants and the unworthy are welcome. No one is excluded. However, in case we get too carried away with this openness, Matthew has added a second parable warning against complacency. The king sees that one of the diners is not wearing a wedding robe. The ill-dressed guest is evicted from the bright lights of the party into the darkness outside. Seems a bit harsh for making a sartorial mistake. However, here clothes are a symbol of character. The idea is used in our baptismal liturgy, where a new robe may be put on the candidate with the words, copied from the Apostle Paul, "You have been clothed with Christ. As many as are baptized into Christ have put on Christ." We don't earn our invitation to the party, but once we accept, we are expected to change. We must take off the old clothes of hatred, prejudice and selfishness and put on the wedding robe of love, joy and peace. Suitably clothed, we may really enjoy the feast. Every Mass is an anticipation of this Messianic banquet. In the words of one of our Eucharistic prayers, we ask that we may be welcomed at your feast in heaven. For our ultimate destiny is, through Christ, to be united into the glorious mystery of the divine Trinity. Amen.